Human trafficking is a crime that involves exploiting a person for labor, services, or commercial sex, and is considered a form of modern-day slavery. Each year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked worldwide, including right here in the United States. To shed more light on this topic, I recently sat down with former Marine and Navy SEAL Craig Sawyer, who runs an organization that rescues human trafficking victims. For people who don't know, kind of give us a quick overview of what your organization is called and what exactly you do.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to sit down with you. And I spent most of my adult career in the Marine, SEAL teams, federal law enforcement. So I founded Veterans for Child Rescue, a nonprofit organization specifically to alert the American populace to a threat that I learned about 6 years ago that is so pervasive and so harmful to us all and so quiet that I realized my biggest contribution against this threat to us would be to alert the populace, to compromise, what we would say in the covert community, compromise the enemy's operation. In other words, expose it, take away their secrecy, and shine the light on it. Well, they're trying to keep covert and quiet and benefit from the secrecy and the top cover that they enjoy. Take that away from them so that we, the people, see it and can safeguard our children from it. And so I started filming a documentary, Contraland, and it's up now on contralandmovie.com, and it's being picked up by 2 networks to air to 550 million households worldwide, which I'm grateful for. And Contraland is really an alert piece. It's a factual walkthrough of the real situation of what's going on with child trafficking in the United States so that the American citizens can understand the nature of the threat against our children.
So for people who don't have a solid understanding of this, maybe define for them what exactly is human trafficking or child trafficking? What forms can it take?
Look, bad people will do anything to make a buck. One of the things that they do is sell other people. And it's nothing new, but it's growing more and more prevalent in the United States. So there is a labor trafficking. So people, basically slave labor, will sell each other internationally. And one of the slave labor trades is sex trafficking. And the darkest of which, in my opinion, is the child sex trafficking. And they get children from a number of means, but they sell the children for sex and for organ harvesting and even worse, torture and even murder to the elite who can afford to just buy a child outright and do with them whatever they want to. So it's something so sickening and so dark, but it's so pervasive that I felt it was my life's mission to alert everyone so that we could understand that it's real and then what it kind of looks like, and more importantly, what we need to do to combat it, to turn against it as a society, culturally do an about face and drive this thing back from the pit of hell where it came from.
So I think a lot of people, when they think of this issue, we kind of imagine somebody rolling up in a white van and tossing somebody in the back of it, or kids getting dragged across the border. Do those things happen? How prevalent are those things, or is it more common to have people here in the United States who are caught up in human trafficking through other means?
Yeah, those things do happen, Adrian. There are child abductions on a constant basis, but it is more prevalent now that children are either taken as runaways, they are met and mentored from bus stops and train stations, places that youngsters go when they run away from home, or taken out of the foster care or child protective services system and sold outright as slaves. And so, one scenario would be a young single mother working hard to provide for her kids. CPS can come in and determine that she's an unfit mother, take her kids, put them in a foster care system. Children may be passed from one foster care family to another. Some may be loving, some may be abusive, but eventually, after a certain number of handoffs, the kids get basically off the books completely and sold outright as a piece of property. And that's where it gets really, really ugly.
So there's some form of trafficking taking place within America's foster care system.
There is, and we mean to investigate much more deeply on it, but some people are saying as many as 80% of the children being trafficked for sex in the United States right now came from the CPS system. So we do have a problem there to dig into. As a nation, we've got to look after our kids.
That's that's a crazy number.
Yeah.
80% coming from within, because that system is so regulated. It's so above board. I mean, how many hundreds of people have to be aware of what's going on to run that kind of system and facilitate these type of dark activities with kids and basically in plain view?
Yeah, well, it's been disheartening for me to learn of the level of corruption, not just in that system, but in the federal government, just about at every level in our society. We have a breakdown of moral and ethical values in the United States. Our culture has been targeted deliberately to break down our moral structure and our core values that have made our country so strong, the family unit, on and on and on. And this is just a symptom of it. We're seeing greater degrees of corruption, and in that, things just inevitably turn bad. So yeah, a lot of people have to know about it, but there's a lot of money. CPS, there is a financial incentive for them to take the child from their biological parents. There is no financial incentive for them to return the child to their biological parents. In my opinion, that's a counterproductive dynamic. Maybe that can be revisited as well. Somewhere there's a perfect solution for it. We just have to find it.
So how high does this go?
I would say it goes all the way to the very top. If you dig into even some former presidents and their organizations and the accusations that are very prevalent,
Such
the
as?
indications are very concerning. Well, the Clinton Foundation and the child trafficking out of Haiti. The internet is full of cases and evidence and accusations that need to be investigated very thoroughly to separate fact from fiction. Somewhere in there is the factual evidence to demonstrate what's actually taking place, and we, the people, deserve to know what that is, and so do the children.
So, I mean, you've been doing this for a couple of years now. You obviously have a pretty strong background with the military, special forces. Based on what you've seen, have you seen any indication that allegations of corruption in terms of human trafficking from somebody that high up are actually true? Do you find that they have merit, or is it something that needs a more thorough investigation in order to be able to make that determination?
Well, from my investigations, I'll tell you this: child sex trafficking and organized crime in general cannot prevail at the level that it does without a lot of top cover. And that means media top cover, it means legal system top cover, it means political top cover. So a lot of our governors, mayors are complicit in different states. They know what's going on, some of them benefiting directly financially from it, others just looking the other way to avoid threats or to take bribes or other financial incentives. And so it's just a matter of getting quality people back in office to occupy those seats that will carry out the campaigns that they ran on to honor their commitment to we the people, to serve our best interests. Our best interests are not being served. There's a lot of blackmail. There's a lot of politicians that voted on a certain ticket and said, I'm going to do this for you, American public, and they're doing the opposite because they're on video at places like Jeffrey Epstein's mansions or his island or some of these other New York City parties and mansions and so forth on video having sex with underage children. It used to be a politician had to have an affair with a woman. A man had to have an affair with a woman. Oh, that was horrible. And all they had to do was present evidence, the crooks, and blackmail him, and they could own him that way. Well, then American public didn't care about that. Then it had to be a homosexual affair for it to have that kind of leverage. Now it's got to be children. And so that's the game. We call it brownstoning operations in the intelligence community. And it's really just blackmailing over video or photo evidence of a politician or elected official having sex with an underage child.
I think a lot of people would be shocked to find out that their governor or even state level officials are engaged in this type of behavior. Is it something that's really that prevalent throughout the United States?
Sorry to say that it is. And so many of our elected officials, unless they're really going after this with a vengeance, are probably complicit in some way. And I don't want to demoralize anybody that hears this, but there does need to be a certain level of awareness of the level of corruption so that we can elect and put more people with stronger integrity and core values in office that aren't so easy to target with the threats and the bribes. We do need stronger people as our representatives. We have to turn this around.
But how do you root out this corruption when it's so pervasive at all levels of government? If you have people who are in law enforcement who are involved, you have people in the DA's office who are involved, you have governors who are involved, you have people at national level politics who are involved, you have a media establishment who's involved. You know, with all of these entities who are running cover and facilitating child sex trafficking, where do you begin? How do you even start to cut the head off the snake?
Well, all of the American citizens have voters' rights, and they have to leverage that and get more assertive at applying that pressure to their elected officials locally. Hey, here's what we want. We want this cleaned up. And if I were the president, I would grab several people that I knew were men or women of strong integrity and moral backbone and assign them as the directors of my key agencies. And I would say bring 50 or 100 righteous patriots with you and place them throughout the chain of command beneath you to carry out your will. And your will shall be to carry out the original charter of this agency in good faith to serve the best interest of the American populace, period. And you will fire and prosecute any crooks that you find in your agency. Your job is to clean it and get it back on its righteous intended mission. You do that for your top several key agencies, and then they can go investigate federal crimes on the local level. They can start prosecuting the crooked DAs and judges statewide. You can imagine if the president had the FBI, the CIA, the NSA really on his side and on the side of our Constitution again, like I believe they once were. There's nothing that we couldn't do. There's no level of corruption we could not clean, but he's got to get control and their support of those agencies before we can do that. I think that's the path forward.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I actually came upon the issue of human trafficking just a couple of years ago. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I've learned quite a bit through following multiple people online. Anna Paulina is one of them. Yeah, I've learned a lot over the last couple of years about trafficking. But maybe since you do this in a different capacity than just simply researching it as I do, maybe you could kind of give me an idea of how dark does it get? Because I've heard some pretty crazy stories. I have no way at this point to verify exactly what may or may not be true, but just based on what you've seen and what you know, how bad does it get?
Well, the adrenochrome is an issue that it sounds so creepy and dark and sketchy. I usually don't like to talk about it, but some of our intel guys on our investigative team have found websites on the dark net, professional websites, advertising adrenochrome, the pricing and everything. And so we know how that's gotten, and it's gotten basically from torturing children and to where they are in an extreme state of panic, and their blood is extracted, and that adrenaline infused child's blood is what they use for their adrenochrome. And these very, very sick elites value that product, and they use it for whatever they do. I've heard different reports on what their benefits are from it, and it's just a sick and really dark thing. But that's one of the things that we know is true. And if it's true, since it is true, then how they obtain it is true, and the activity of them treating the children that way is real. And I haven't been to a satanic ceremony where they're torturing children, but there are too many people reporting on it for it just to be a rumor. Where there's smoke, there's got to be fire. It's just a matter of digging down and actually breaking these cases and finding the factual evidence. And it's hard to get in to a network like that because it's it's such a dark crime and heinous crime to where they want to filter anybody that has access to it. So typically what I'm told is that someone that would want to witness a child sacrifice would have to first go to a party where they would be made to have sex with a child before they're going to see the next level of depravity. So if you're not willing to incriminate yourself on video, right, that could put you in prison, then you don't get to see the next thing. And so it seems to be a staged thing like that. So that's why you don't have people going in and seeing it and coming out and reporting it, because it's too controlled. Somewhere there's got to be, my God, a solution for this level of evil, because what's being done in the children shouldn't be okay with any of us. And how it grew so big is alarming to me. Just as a normal guy, a father and a patriot, I'm like, why is this a thing? Why are we having to pay attention to this and deal with it and alert it? Why are our mainstream news media not alerting our populace to the factual reality of the fastest growing criminal enterprise on earth, of the fact that it's a $38 billion a year industry inside the United States? Human trafficking on the whole globally is a $150 billion a year enterprise. We're not being told about it. We're not being warned about it. So that's a demonstration, it's evidence of the fact that our mainstream news media do not have our best interests at heart. Otherwise, they'd be warning us of the threat against us all. So I resent, as a citizen, getting older now, having to spend my time alerting the populace to a threat that, number one, we should all be aware of, and number two, our law enforcement should be attacking and shattering on all fronts. Something that this big, destroying the minds of our children. A child being raped over and over and over again is such a psychological trauma that they spend the rest of their lives. A lot of them kill themselves, by the way. They commit suicide out of the torment that it puts them through. It'd break your heart. Somebody said online the other day, they said, Contraland hurts even hardened men. And it's because this shouldn't be happening. To see what people will do to kids, it will break your heart, because there's no one more precious and innocent than a child. But sickeningly enough, that's why they do it. The people, there's the reasoning why they're doing the unthinkable to God's most precious and innocent. So there's a whole realm of stuff that should not exist. So if we get hot on our law enforcement prosecuting and convicting these people and taking them off the streets, we can start cleaning this up. And the news media needs to start alerting the populace so that we're aware of the threat, just like we want to be aware and alerted if there's a rabid coyote in the neighborhood. We want our kids to be aware of the threat. And this is no different. We have to make each other aware so that we can safeguard the kids, man.
And you actually have a personal connection with the world of trafficking, right?
Yeah.
Was your daughter was a victim?
Well, she wasn't trafficked. She was taken at knife point and from a Subway sandwich shop. She walked out the door, and a serial predator, he shouldn't be on the streets. He should not have been on the streets. But for our soft legal system, they keep letting him back out. And he walked up and put a knife right to her side and in the dark of night and took her off. He told her he was going to kill her, and he raped her again and again all night long. And she eventually figured out how to, our daughter's very sharp. She had just turned 18. She figured out how to deal with him in a way. She figured out what this sick SOB needed to hear to let her get away from him and get to her car. And she told him everything he needed to hear. And God only knows what that was. I don't know. She won't tell us. But we can kind of guess what he would need to hear. And she called us screaming in her car in the middle of the night. She was driving home, frantic, running red lights, everything. She was in a full-on panic, bless her heart. And we got her home. We got her to the hospital. She fought back. She had to wait 2.5 years for her predator to be brought to trial. The judge in Tucson, Javier Chan Lopez, allowed this serial predator to fire 13 public defenders, delaying his trial every time. and eventually to represent himself. And while we were waiting, and our daughter was being re-traumatized every time the court would call us and say, he's fired another lawyer, your trial's being delayed yet again. She said, Papa, I want to run with you. I want to serve as a junior decoy agent at one of your operations. And I said, nope. You're not getting around any bad guys ever again. And she said, eventually, I'm going to do this with or without you. And I'm like, okay, baby girl. And I know she's hard enough that she meant it. And
it must have made you proud on some level.
It did. Look, my wife's Irish and Cherokee. She takes no grief. I'm a tier 1 level counter-terrorist operator. I take no grief. And our daughter comes by it honestly. So she was meant to fight back, and it was going to happen. And once all my objections had been overridden, I decided, okay, baby girl, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it under Papa's wing where I can protect you. And I got my team in the house. And so that's the way we did it. And she helped put 9 predators away. And she just stood there and watched them turn from predator into prisoner right before her eyes. And she said, Papa, that was so empowering for me. And I would wish that for every victim. I would want for them to be able to have that benefit and be blessed with that opportunity. Sadly, not everyone gets that chance, but maybe they can live vicariously through her and see her fight back. And I've been contacted by many mothers saying my daughter was empowered by your daughter's fight back. And then so later, she testified. Her predator, my daughter's predator, was allowed to berate and torment her for over 2 hours on the witness stand and accuse her of every horrible thing he could think of in his own defense. And the judge let him. And she looked straight at the jury and she just said what really happened. No matter what kind of things what picture he tried to paint, she said the factual truth right to the jury. And then afterward, the expert witnesses came in with their video evidence, with their forensic DNA evidence that proved exactly what she said, word for word for word. And it was like so many nails were driven into this predator's coffin. Ultimately, the jury voted guilty on all 7 counts.
Good.
They convicted him to 68 years in prison.
Good.
So she saw that the system could work for her if she just stood up and fought through it. But let me tell you, it's not fun for the victims. And somewhere there needs to be a perfect solution, a balance between not being able to falsely accuse someone of rape and also not being tormented if they're a genuine victim by all of the probing questions and harassment. The system is very imperfect. There's a lot of room for improvement, and it's no surprise why so many of the victims just quit and walk away and don't prosecute, because it's such a nasty experience for them. So I do hope and pray, and maybe we'll network and fight for a smarter system of solutions for the actual victims. Well, one of the problems that we're seeing is that law enforcement seem to be geared to go after the victim. They'll see a child sex victim as a prostitute, and they'll try to prosecute them as the criminal. But they're not trained yet, so many of them, to really analyze the situation and think, wait a minute, how did this child get into this industry, and what did it take for this child to be selling themselves sexually? That's not normal, right? There's probably a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, and a lot of manipulation and control. This child's making a lot of money for somebody. So they're being pimped out. Where are they? And what's the whole dynamic? So, and another thing is people that aren't pimping themselves out, maybe date raped or slipped a Mickey, roofie at a club or at a party. They get date raped, or they try to report it, and law enforcement really aren't geared to go after those kind of crimes. They see the victim as somehow the perpetrator. You shouldn't have been wearing that. You shouldn't have been at a party. You shouldn't have been in a club. And that we've got to get past that, I think, as a society. We've got to start looking at the children. If they're under 18, they're not yet developed cognitively. Their outer cortex and frontal lobe are not yet fully developed. Scientists now have learned that the human brain is not fully developed until more like 23 to 25 years of age. So a child cannot advocate for themselves against a full-grown predatory adult. Having sex with someone under the 18 is rape for a reason. It's rape for a scientific reason. It's rape for a moral reason. And it needs to stay that way. And we've got people lobbying and networking and spending a lot of money forcing the narrative on us that child rape is just a sexual preference. Well, no, what about the child's preference? The child can't advocate yet. They cannot choose. They are an unwilling participant because they're not yet able to choose for themselves. So we have to look after them until they're old enough to make their own decisions. So the gay community is being targeted by the pedophile community to try to hook their wagon together to say, yeah, this is just another sexual preference. You know, us too. A lot of the gay people are going, no, we're not on board with that. We're not down with you raping children and connecting your wagon to ours. You know, on one side you got consenting adults, and on the pedophile side you got an adult with a child that cannot consent, and it's different. So we can never allow them to normalize that and prey upon our children. It's absolutely shattering their little minds.
I want to touch on something that happened pretty recently. A story recently broke about Wayfair.
Yeah.
And there's some allegations that people have been using that particular website to finance human trafficking. You know, there was some merchandise that was posted with the names, the name of the merchandise matched the name of a missing child.
Yeah.
And what people are suggesting is that people might have been able to either purchase the child or purchase sex with the child or something to that effect directly from this website. Based on what you know about child trafficking and human trafficking, is this something that actually does happen? And if so, how prevalent is it?
There does seem to be something there, definitely. And I've seen other websites where it could be demonstrated that there's a special code that you have to enter into one of the blanks on the commercial website to access a back room where there's a different product being modeled, this time by kids in the back room. The back room is not searchable by any means on the internet. You have to access the actual website first, enter a special code that the general populace does not know to access the back room where you've got children modeling different items. And so that's something that seems very concerning to me. And then now this Wayfair story that popped up, and very concerning aspects about that. Like you said, the missing children's names on them, $196,000 for a vase, a 21-inch vase, and cabinets that cost $13,000, pillows that cost $10,000, things like that. It causes great concern, and it looks sketchy. What I caution people to do is, somewhere there's the truth. We can't snap to judgment. In a federal criminal investigation, you've got to get in and dig through the totality of the circumstances, dig through all of the factual evidence, talk to all the people involved, the witnesses, weigh out all of the evidence, and eventually you'll come up with your best understanding of the truth. And that's what has to happen to genuinely understand what's going on in any situation. So there will be an initial appearance, and if the initial appearance is strong enough, it can initiate an investigation. And that's what I encourage to happen, an investigation. And during that investigation, that's when the truth starts to come out, that, okay, this, and this happened. And what I like to say is, as a federal criminal investigator, what I did was I had 3 mental baskets for evidence, information. A proven basket, you telling me something? Yep, that's been proven. I can put that in the proven basket. This has been accused over time, but we've learned now that that's been disproven. Okay, disproven basket. And then the third one is the unknown. If we just can't decide, okay, that one still stays in the unknown. Well, over time, proven, disproven, unknown, one of those baskets will be filled inherently more than the others, and that's your best understanding of the totality of the circumstances. So you'll never understand the complete truth just looking at something on the internet. So I caution people that while it's an easy way to investigate and it's a great head start, you're never going to understand the whole thing until you get on the ground, talk to the people, dig through with tools that only law enforcement have to understand what's really going on. But what I celebrate, Adrian, is people their alertness now and their willingness to look after their children and look at this and say, wait a minute, this does look sketchy. This does look concerning. Hey, network on social media, what do you think about this? Hey, law enforcement, have a look at this. I celebrate that. As a populace, we're smarter. We are harder to target. Our children are harder to target if we're alert that way. That's part of the non-permissive environment that I've been fighting to create against child trafficking out of our citizenry, out of our populace. Vets for Child Rescue was created to start that movement, to change our culture, to be one that are protective of children now, not predatory against them, right? To prosecute child predators, not to appease them and pander to them. And so I got to fight back the emotion when I see the people standing up and alerting each other and dogging this and go, wait a minute, this looks horrible. Let's dig deeper. Let's alert law enforcement. Let's get to the bottom of this on behalf of the kids. What a beautiful thing. That's what needs to happen. If we can ignite a wildfire of awareness and a culture of protection like that, we can defeat child trafficking in this country.
Yeah, and you yourself, you're a trained killer.
Woo.
You know, you're a special forces guy. You're basically built for this. So what other steps can just an average person take to actually start to kind of interdict these networks and make a difference in preventing human trafficking or even helping to rescue a kid who might have been a victim of trafficking?
Yeah, being aware of the crime and how it works. On vetsforchildrescue.org, on our website, we've got a list of tools, what to look for, how to spot a child that might be being trafficked, how the predators stalk our children through their smart devices, their phones, their Xboxes, their laptops.
So tell me more about that.
Yeah. A lot of the apps that our children use to chat back and forth on are also used by the child predators.
So what would be like the top 2 or 3 apps?
Oh, there's any of the video apps where they share videos back and forth.
Like Snapchat, TikTok?
TikTok are some of the top apps that are being utilized.
For trafficking?
So for trafficking, because a predator will sit back and pretend to be another child and chat with your child and befriend them. Hey, I'm a child too. Hey, okay, we're cool. Here's a video. And after a while, the predator will send your child, let's say your child's a boy. Predator may send your boy photos of a young, attractive girl. Hey, I'm new to your school. I'm scared. Do you want to be friends? I saw you in the hallway. You look like a nice guy. And your boy may be flattered, like, wow, she's pretty. Yeah, I'll do the chivalrous thing. I'll befriend you and make a new student feel welcome, right? That's an honorable thing. And then maybe she starts talking and then wants to become his girlfriend. And he's flattered and then maybe she starts showing him, the predator, showing him pictures because he's got thousands of pictures of this girl, probably in video. And he's showing your son video. Hey, here's a little, picture of me, a little revealing picture, right? That indicates something. And this language goes into sexual language. And maybe she asks your son first, hey, show me a little something. And maybe he does. And then from there, the predator doesn't even have to reveal to your son that he's an adult male. He could just say, hey, look, I want more. And if your son ever stops or says no, he could say, I'm going to show your parents. I'm going to put it on the internet for millions of people to see. I'm going to show it to everybody in your school. Now show me video. Now meet me at this one place. And we'll have sex and it'll be behind us. Maybe your son will go, gets hit in the head, thrown in the back of a creepy rape van, never to be seen or heard from again. There's all kind of scenarios like that. So get into your child's phones, get into their apps, understand who they're talking to, cause them to understand the threat against them and how dangerous it is, and some things not to do. I encourage parents to take their child's phones at night, which is generally when they get in trouble, put them on charge in your master bedroom and give it back to them in the daytime. That's a step that can really help safeguard them and just things like that. So go to vetsforchildrescue.org, look through the tools of safety and knowledge, hound your elected officials, demand stronger enforcement against the predators, stronger protections for our kids, get good quality people in office, and let's, as a nation, fight on the whole to turn this around.
For more information or to learn how you can get involved, please visit the website vetsforchildrescue.org. Also, make sure to watch Craig's documentary, Contraland.